Hare Krishna. Welcome back to the live studio here at the geriatric ward on extension of Methodist Hospital. What do they call it? Something op. Anyway, here we are. Next to Sri Sri Radha Nilamadava's beautiful temple, most beautiful deities, with a room full of devotees that are so sympathetic and empathetic they barely can speak or act. Because I've been trying to get this together, but it's taken quite some time, so I'm late, so please forgive me for being late. I promised that I would be starting at 6:30, and now it's 6:45. So please forgive me, but at least I'm here. And I have proof that we're not this body. You see this? You see this thing over here? See this? It's a dead hand, a dead arm. It's called blocked. It's blocked, completely blocked. So there's no nerves working for this arm. And yet, I'm here, and the arm is here. But come over here, arm. Come over here. Come over here. It's not working. Anyway, hopefully tomorrow we'll start working. But that's when the pain starts. So don't worry. At least right now, I'm feeling no pain, and I got some joy juice running through me, or whatever they call it. That's what the nurses called it. It was so hilarious. I was preaching to everyone, of course. I always preach to everyone wherever I go. And I gave kind of like a Bhagwan class to these three nurses as they had to put my dhoti on. And it was so hilarious. They couldn't figure out how to do it. So I had to explain to them how to do it. It was hilarious. And they all went away pretty happy, laughing, and come back again. I said, no thanks. Okay. So anyway, we did our 40 rounds, 40 pages of the Chaitanya Charitamrita this morning, and here we're going to do our reading. Because this is the medicine, and this is the real joy juice. Hare Krishna. All right, welcome to all of you out in cyberspace, cyberland. Let's hear Sanatana Goswami's beautiful, sweet glorification of Srimad-Bhagavatam from the Sri Krishna Lila Stava, text 412 through 416 by Srila Sanatana Goswami, the senior of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drik Prada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwandoditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvadasa Vasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Manmahadana Mannishtadagamad Madanandanamostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu, saduta dayin, atini chochatakara, hanamun chagadachin mam prem narit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, I forgot to tell you the nice bit of news. The surgeon said the operation was a complete success. Of course, what that means, we'll find out in a few days. Okay. We've reached chapter 13, and we're quite a ways into it, of the first canto. Dhrtarastra quits home. And you may remember that Vidura, who was the younger brother of Dhrtarastra, returned from pilgrimage that he went on because he couldn't tolerate Duryodhana's behavior anymore. And he came back only to preach to Dhrtarastra. And now, I don't know if this is still in vogue in ISKCON, but when I joined, it was in vogue to say, when you're going to correct somebody, you're giving them the sauce. You've heard that before? All right. Vidura is going to give Dhrtarastra the sauce. He already did one verse that was pretty heavy. He said, what are you doing here? Get out of here at once. Okay, now we're in text 20. Whoever is under the influence of supreme Kala, eternal time, must surrender his most dear life, and what to speak of other things, such as wealth, honor, children, land, and home. Purport. A great Indian scientist, busy in the plan-making business, was suddenly called by invincible eternal time while going to attend a very important meeting of the Planning Commission. He had to surrender his life, wife, children, house, land, wealth, farm, and so on. During the political upsurge in India and its division into Pakistan and Hindustan, so many rich and influential Indians had to surrender life, property, and honor due to the influence of time. And there are hundreds and thousands of examples like that all over the world, all over the universe. Oh, Hannah, thank you very much. And Hannah, thank you very much for being you. You're delighting everyone, including me. So just like Vidura gave, Dhrtarastra a little sauce, don't mind I gave you a little sauce, because somehow or other the thing changed, and I hope we'll go over it again afterwards, so that I'll be sure to know what to do. In other words, I was here on time, but it took a little longer than normal to set things up. Hare Krishna. Okay. So, Prabhupada just told us about a big guy and who had to give up everything. Oh, he's talking about during the political upsurge in India and its division of Pakistan and Hindustan, so many rich and influential Indians had to surrender life, property, and honor due to the influence of time. And there are hundreds and thousands of examples like that all over the world, all over the universe, which are all effects of the influence of time. Therefore, the conclusion is that there is no powerful living being within the universe who can overcome the influence of time. Many poets have written verses lamenting the influence of time. Many devastations have taken place over the universes due to the influence of time, and no one could check them by any means. Even in our daily life, so many things come and go in which we have no hand. Oh, I can't help it. It's my nature. It's the way I am. Can't help it. Got to make a joke out of everything. Okay. This is a good line, though, right? Even in our daily life, so many things come and go in which we have no hand. But we have to suffer or tolerate them without remedial measure. Anyway, I'm not making it up, I'm just reading it. That is the result of time. Text 21. Your father, brother, well-wishers, and sons are all dead and passed away. You yourself have expended the major portion of your life. Your body is now overtaken by invalidity. And you are living in the home of another. Purport. The king is reminded of his precarious condition, influenced by cruel time and by his past experience. He should have been more intelligent to see what was going to happen in his own life. But somebody tripped me. His father, Vichitravirya, died long ago when he and his younger brothers were all little children. And it was due to the care and kindness of Bhishmadev that they were properly brought up. Then again his brother Pandu died also. Then in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, his 100 sons and his grandsons all died, along with all other well-wishers, like Bhishmadev, Dronacharya, Karna, and many other kings and friends. So he had lost all men and money, and now he was living at the mercy of his nephew, whom he had tried to put into troubles of various types. And despite all these reverses, he thought that he would prolong his life more and more. Vidura wanted to point out to Dhrtarastra that everyone has to protect himself and by his action and by the grace of the Lord. One has to execute his duty faithfully, depending for the result on the supreme authority. No friend, no children, no father, no brother, no state, and no one else can protect a person who was not protected by the Supreme Lord. One should therefore seek the protection of the Supreme Lord, for the human form of life is meant for seeking that protection. He was warned of his precarious conditions more and more by the following words. I'm not making this, I didn't skip ahead, to come to a place that would make it more material for my jokes. I'm just reading in the same place where we left off. Text 22. You have been blind from your very birth. and recently you have become hard of hearing. Your memory is shortened, and your intelligence is disturbed. Your teeth are loose. Your liver is defective, and you are coughing up mucus. Purport. The symptoms of old age, which had already developed in Dhrtarastra, were all one after another pointed out to him as warning that death was nearing very quickly. And still, he was foolishly carefree about his future. The signs pointed out by Vidura in the body of Dhrtarastra were signs of apekshaya, or dwindling of the material body, before the last stroke of death. The body is born, it develops, stays, creates other bodies, dwindles, and then vanishes. But foolish men want to make a permanent settlement of the perishable body and think that their estate, children, society, country, etc. will give them protection. With such foolish ideas, they become overtaken by such temporary engagements and forget altogether that they must give up this temporary body and take a new one, again to arrange for another term of society, friendship, and love. Again to perish, ultimately. They forget their permanent identity and become foolishly active for impermanent occupations, forgetting altogether their prime duty. Saints and sages like Vidura Where am I? Oh, sorry. Saints and sages like Vidura approach such foolish men to awaken them to the real situation, but they take such sadhus and saints as parasites of society. And almost all of them refuse to hear the words of such sadhus and saints, although they welcome show bottle sadhus and so-called saints who can satisfy their senses. Vidura was not a sadhu to satisfy the ill-gotten sentiment of Dhrtarastra. He was correctly pointing out the real situation of life and how one can save oneself from such catastrophes. Text 23. This is heavy stuff, okay? Alas, how powerful are the hopes of a living being to continue his life. Verily, you are living just like a household dog, and are eating remnants of food given by Bhima. Purport. A sadhu should never flatter kings or rich men to live comfortably at their cost. A sadhu is to speak to the householders about the naked truth of life, so that they may come to their senses about the precarious life in material existence. Dhrtarastra is a typical example of an attached old man in household life. He had become a pauper in the true sense, yet he wanted to live comfortably in the house of the Pandavas, of whom Bhishma especially is mentioned, of whom Bhima is especially mentioned because personally he killed two prominent sons of Dhrtarastra, namely Duryodhana and Dushasana. These two sons were very much dear to him for their notorious and nefarious activities, and Bhima is particularly pointed out because he killed these two pet sons. Why was Dhrtarastra living there at the house of the Pandavas? Because he wanted to continue his life comfortably, even at the risk of all humiliation. Vidura, therefore, was astonished how powerful is the urge to continue life. This sense of continuing one's life indicates that a living being is eternally a living entity and does not want to change his bodily habitation. The foolish man does not know that a particular term of bodily existence is awarded to him to undergo a term of imprisonment, and the human body is awarded after many, many births and deaths as a chance for self-realization to go back home, back to Godhead. But persons like Dhrtarastra try to make plans to live there in a comfortable position with profit and interest, for they do not see things as they are. Dhrtarastra is blind and continues to hope to live comfortably in the midst of all kinds of reverses in life. A sadhu like Vidura is meant to awaken such blind persons and thus help them go back to Godhead, where life is eternal. Once going there, no one wants to come back to this material world of miseries. We can just imagine how responsible a task is entrusted to a sadhu like Mahatma Vidura. Text 24. There is no need to live a degraded life and subsist on the charity of those whom you tried to kill by arson and poisoning. You also insulted one of their wives and usurped their kingdom and wealth. Purport. The system of Varnashrama's religion sets aside a part of one's life completely for the purpose of self-realization and attainment of salvation in the human form of life. That is a routine division of life. But persons like Dhrtarastra, even at their weary, ripened age, want to stay home, even in a degraded condition of accepting charity from enemies. Vidura wanted to point this out and impressed upon him that it was better to die like his sons than accept such humiliating charity. 5,000 years ago, there was one Dhrtarastra. But at the present moment, there are Dhritarastras in every home. Hare Krishna. Politicians, especially, do not retire from political activities unless they are dragged by the cruel hand of death or killed by some opposing element. To stick to family life to the end of one's human life is the grossest type of degradation, and there is an absolute need for the Viduras actually, to educate such Dhritarastras even at the present moment. Text 25. Despite your unwillingness to die and your desire to live even at the cost of honor and prestige, your miserly body will certainly dwindle and deteriorate like an old garment. Purport. The words kripanasya jijivasho are significant. There are two classes of men. One is called the kripana and the other is called the brahmana. The kripana, or the miserly man, has no estimation of his material body, but the brahmana has a true estimation of himself and the material body. The kripana, having a wrong estimation of his material body, wants to enjoy sense gratification with his utmost strength. And even in old age, he wants to become a young man by medical treatment or otherwise. Dhritarashtra is addressed here as a kripana because without any estimation of his material body, he wants to live at any cost. Vidura is trying to open his eyes to see that he cannot live more than his term and that he must prepare for death. Since death is inevitable, why should he accept such a humiliating position for living? It is better to take the right path, even at the risk of death. Human life is meant for finishing all kinds of miseries of material existence and life should be so regulated that one can achieve the desired goal. Dhrtarastra, due to his wrong conception of life, had already spoiled 80% of his achieved energy, so it behooved him to utilize the remaining days of his miserly life for the ultimate good. Such a life is called miserly because one cannot properly utilize the assets of the human form of life. Only by good luck does such a miserly man meet a self-realized soul like Vidura, and by his instruction get rid of the nations of material existence. Text 26. Could you get some of these out and kind of make them more easily available? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Cheers. He is called undisturbed, who goes to an unknown, remote place, and freed from all obligations, quits his material body when it has become useless. Purport. Narottama Dasa Thakur, a great devotee of an Acharya of the Gaudiya Vaishnava sect, has sung, "My Lord, I have simply wasted my life. Having obtained the human body, I have neglected to worship your Lordship, and therefore I have willingly drunk poison." In other words, the human body is especially meant for cultivating knowledge of devotional service to the Lord, without which life becomes full of anxieties and miserable conditions. Therefore, one who has spoiled his life without such cultural activities is advised to leave home without knowledge of friends and relatives, and being thus freed from all obligations to family, society, country, etc., give up the body at some unknown destination, so that others may not know where and how he has met his death. Dhira means one who is not disturbed, even when there is sufficient provocation. One cannot give up a comfortable family life due to his affectionate relation with wife and children. Self-realization is obstructed by such undue affection for family, and if anyone is at all able to forget such a relation, he is called undisturbed or dhira. This is, however, the path of renunciation based on a frustrated life. But stabilization of such renunciation is possible only by association with bona fide saints and self-realized souls, by which one can be engaged in the loving devotional service of the Lord. Sincere surrender under the lotus feet of the Lord is possible by awakening the transcendental sense of service. This is made possible by association with pure devotees of the Lord. Dhrtarastra was lucky enough to have a brother whose very association was the source of liberation for his frustrated life. So we should learn a lesson here, that Vidura's words are specifically heavy, telling the truth as it is, but specifically to Dhrtarastra, because he had reached very old age, and he was planning to stay there, acting like he was a king, and being maintained by the very people he tried to kill and usurp their kingdom. But that doesn't mean that we all should give up our family immediately when we're not ready spiritually and run off to the forest and stop doing duties. Rather, we should make our lives Krishna conscious here and now. This was Lord Chaitanya's question, or the answer rather, that Lord Chaitanya accepted from Ramananda Roy in the 8th chapter of the Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Stay where you are. Give up speculating about the absolute truth and hear sincerely from a bona fide source. in whatever situation you're in, if you do that and do your duties nicely, detached but nicely, in satisfaction to everyone involved, but become Krishna conscious. And help the others in your family, in your sphere of influence, become Krishna conscious. From any position. Text 27. He is certainly a first-class man who awakens and understands either by himself or from others the falsity and misery of this material world, and thus leaves home and depends fully on the personality of Godhead residing within his heart. Purport. There are three classes of transcendentalists, namely, 1, the Dhira, or the one who is not disturbed by being away from family association. 2, one in the renounced order of life, sannyasi, a sannyasi by frustrated sentiment. And 3, a sincere devotee of the Lord, who awakens God consciousness by hearing and chanting, and leaves home depending completely on the personality of Godhead who resides in his heart. The idea is that the renounced order of life, after a frustrated life of sentiment in the material world, may be the stepping stone on the path of self-realization, but real perfection of the path of liberation is attained when one is practiced to depend fully on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who lives in everyone's heart as Paramatma. One may live in the darkest jungle alone, out of home, but a steadfast devotee knows very well that he is not alone. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is with him, and he can protect his sincere devotee in any. Should therefore practice devotional service at home, hearing and chanting the holy name, quality, form, pastimes, entourage, and so on, in association with pure devotees. And this practice will help one awaken God consciousness in proportion to one's sincerity of purpose. One who desires material benefit by such devotional activities can never depend on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although he sits in everyone's heart. Nor does the Lord give any direction to persons who worship him for material gain. Such materialistic devotees may be blessed by the Lord with material benefits, but they cannot reach the stage of the first-class human being, as above mentioned. There are many examples of such sincere devotees in the history of the world, especially in India, and they are our guides on the path of self-realization. Mahatma Vidura is one such great devotee of the Lord, and we should all try to follow in his footsteps for self-realization. Text 28. Please therefore leave for the north immediately, without letting your relatives know, for soon that time will approach, which will diminish the good qualities of men. Purport. One can compensate for a life of frustration by becoming a dhira, or leaving home for good without communicating with relatives, and Vidura advised his eldest brother to adopt this way without delay, because very quickly the age of Kali was approaching. A conditioned soul is already degraded by the material association, and still in the Kali Yuga, the good qualities of a man will deteriorate to the lowest standard. He was advised to leave home before Kali Yuga approached, because the atmosphere which was created by Vidura, his valuable instructions on the facts of life, would fade away due to the influence of the age, which was fast approaching. To become Narottama, or a first-class human being, depending completely on the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna is not possible for any ordinary man. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that a person who is completely relieved of all taints of sinful acts can alone depend on the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Dhrtarastra was advised by Vidura at least to become a Dhira in the beginning, if it were impossible for him to become a sannyasi or a Narottama. Persistently endeavoring on the line of self-realization helps a person to rise to the conditions of a Narottama from the stage of a Dhira. The Dhira stage is attained after prolonged practice of the yoga system, but by the grace of Vidura, one can attain this stage immediately, simply by willing to adopt the means of the Dhira stage, which is the preparatory stage for sannyas. The sannyasa stage is the preparatory stage of Paramahansa, or the first grade devotee of the Lord. 29. Thus Maharaj Dhrtarastra, the scion of the family of Ajamita, firmly convinced by introspective knowledge, pragya, broke at once the strong network of familial affection by his resolute determination. Thus he immediately left home to set out on the path of liberation, as directed by his younger brother, Vidura. Excuse me. Purport. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the great preacher, really? Oh, here. Okay. Purport. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the great preacher of the principles of Srimad-Bhagavatam, has stressed the importance of association with sadhus, pure devotees of the Lord. He said that even by a moment's association with a pure devotee, one can achieve all perfection. We are not ashamed to admit that this fact was experienced in our practical life. Were we not favored by His divine grace, Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, by our first meeting for a few minutes only, it would have been impossible for us to accept this mighty task of describing Srimad Bhagavatam in English. Without seeing him at the opportune moment, we could have become a very great business magnate, but never would we have been able to walk the path of liberation and be engaged in the factual service of the Lord under instruction of His divine grace. And here is another practical example by the action of Vidura's association with Dhrtarastra. Maharaj Dhrtarastra was tightly bound in a network of material affinities related to politics, economy, and family attachment, and he did everything in his power to achieve so-called success in his planned projects. But he was frustrated from the beginning to the end, so far as his material activities were concerned. And yet, despite his life of failure, he achieved the greatest of all success in self-realization by the forceful instructions of a pure devotee of the Lord, who was the typical emblem of a sadhu. The scriptures enjoin, therefore, that one should associate with sadhus only, rejecting all other kinds of association, and by so doing, one will have ample opportunity to hear the sadhus, who can cut to pieces the bonds of illusory affection in the material world. It is a fact that the material world is a great illusion, because everything appears to be a tangible reality, but at the next moment evaporates like the dashing foam of the sea or a cloud in the sky. A cloud in the sky undoubtedly appears to be a reality because it rains, and due to rain so many temporary green things appear, but in the ultimate issue everything disappears, namely the cloud, rain, and green vegetation, all in due course. But the sky remains, and the varieties of sky or luminaries also remain forever. Similarly, the absolute truth, which is compared to the sky, remains eternally, and the temporary cloud-like illusion comes and goes away. Foolish living beings are attracted by the temporary cloud, but intelligent men are more concerned with the eternal sky, with all its variegatedness. Text 30. The gentle and chaste Gandhari, who was the daughter of King Subala of the Kandahar, or Gandhara, followed her husband, seeing that he was going to the Himalaya mountains, which are the delight of those who have accepted the staff of the renounced order, like fighters who have accepted a good lashing from the enemy. Purport. Sobalini, or Gandhari, daughter of King Subala and wife of King Dhrtarastra, was ideal as a wife devoted to her husband. The Vedic civilization especially prepares chaste and devoted wives, of whom Gandhari is one amongst many mentioned in history. Lakshmiji, Sita Devi, was also a daughter of a great king, but she followed her husband, Lord Ramachandra, into the forest. Similarly, as a woman, Gandhari could have remained at home or at her father's house, but as a chaste and gentle lady, she followed her husband without consideration. Instructions for the renounced order of life were imparted to Dhrtarastra by Vidura, and Gandhari was by the side of her husband. But he did not ask her to follow him, because he was at that time fully determined, like a great warrior who faces all kinds of dangers in the battlefield. He was no longer attracted to the so-called wife or relatives, and he decided to start alone. But as a chaste lady, Gandhari decided to follow her husband to the last moment. Maharaj Dhrtarastra accepted the order of Vanaprastha, and at this stage, the wife is allowed to remain as a voluntary servitor. But in the sannyas stage, no wife can stay with her former husband. A sannyasi is considered to be a dead man civilly, and therefore the wife becomes a civil widow without connection with her former husband. Maharaj Dhrtarastra did not deny his faithful wife, and she followed her husband at her own risk. The sannyasis accept a rod as a sign of the renounced order of life. There are two types of sannyasis: those who follow the Mayavadi philosophy, headed by Sripada Shankaracharya, accept only one rod, ekadanda, but those who follow the Vaishnavite philosophy accept three combined rods, tridanda. The Mayavadi sannyasis are called ekadandi swamis, whereas the Vaishnava sannyasis are known as tridandi swamis, or more distinctly, tridandi goswamis, in order to be distinguished from the Mayavadi philosophers. The ekadandi swamis are mostly found in the Himalayas, but the Vaishnava sannyasis are fond of Vrindavan and Puri. The Vaishnava sannyasis are narottamas, where the Mayavadi sannyasis are dhiras. Maharaj Dhrtarastra was advised to follow the dhiras, because at that stage it was difficult for him to become a narottama. And I will stop the reading for tonight. Apologize once again to everyone for being late. I just will share with you one kind of little story that when I was in the hospital day, after coming out of the surgery, and talking to all the people that were helping me to get ready and telling me what I should do and what I shouldn't do and helping me to adjust to this temporary situation. I have witnesses. I'm sorry that Krishna Creeper isn't here because he was a witness. I started preaching to these nurses straight. We're not this body. You see? And I did this thing I would, and they were laughing. And then I just kept going and kept going. I don't remember all the things that I said. I was just coming out of the, the joy juice, whatever they want to call it. And they all, at the end, they were all like surrounding me and telling me how wonderful it was that I came. And we learned so much spiritual instruction from you. It was wonderful. It was really wonderful. And it just made all the things that I'm going through insignificant compared to the happiness I felt. Just, trying to be an instrument to help someone else take a little step. I didn't talk about Krishna so much, although I did talk about Krishna, Christ. I did tell him about that and other things. But I guess I'm trying to elaborate on what Srila Prabhupada said in some of the purport in this very heavy section. This very heavy section. It's meant to be heavy. It's meant to wake us up, But it doesn't mean that if we don't go to the forest right away, when we have family responsibilities and so many duties in life, that there's something wrong with us. No, that was particularly for Dhrtarastra because of his particular situation. He was already old. His body was already falling apart. Whereas Yudhishthira, he stayed for I don't know how long, 1,000 years? Anyway, I can't remember the exact number, but he stayed for many, many years, enjoying the heavenly kingdom of the earth ruled by him, by Krishna's grace. So we want to become pure devotees. We don't. Lord Chaitanya said, "I'm not a sannyasi. I'm not a brahmachari. I'm not a grihastha. I'm not a brahmana. I'm not a shudra. I'm not any of these material designations. I'm not the body." And to act like we're not the body doesn't mean to remove ourselves from the situation we're in now, but it means to change our consciousness. It means to become detached from those things. Krishna actually defines the sannyas order in the first verse of the 6th chapter of the Gita. Anashita karma palam, karyam karma karotiya, sa sannyasi chiyogicha na niragnir nachakriya. He says that one is considered to be a sannyasi who lives free from the attachments of his daily life and duties and responsibilities. And then he says, he's the sannyasi, not one who, na niragnir, the chakra, one who lights no fire, which means doesn't do practical devotional service, and not kriya, and who doesn't do something in life, who doesn't perform work, who doesn't do something practical. And Srila Prabhupada gave us this wonderful Krishna consciousness movement because it allows us to perform all kinds of different activities wherever we are, whatever our situation is, in an effort to spread the mission of Lord Chaitanya. And by Krishna's grace, I read this morning 40 pages of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, just in the section of the 9th chapter of the Adi Lila, where Lord Chaitanya is explaining how he's just the gardener, but he also wants to be the tree, and he's also the fruits. He's everything. And then he says, but I'm a gardener, and how many fruits can I eat? This, the fruits of love of God are being spread by him like wildfire. And he said, how can I eat all these fruits? I can't. So then he said, I order every soul in this universe to accept the Krishna consciousness movement and distribute it to others. So from whatever position you're in, if you figure out how way to do that, and the way to do that is to display Srila Prabhupada's books wherever you are, in your home programs, in your whatever programs you're doing at the farm. Display Prabhupada's books. Make this the focus. So whatever else you say to make them feel comfortable and, not treat them like Dhrtarastra and say your teeth are falling out and get out of here. We don't want to talk to people like that, of course. Neither did Prabhupada. And as far as being a sannyasi, he taught his first women disciples how to put on saris. He would have been excommunicated completely in India for doing something like that. No one had ever done anything like that. He got his girl and boy devotees who were ready for marriage, got him married. Performed. He was involved in the yajna. Something a sannyasi had never done before. Because he knew how to spread Krishna consciousness. He knew how to adjust. But there are certain things that we can't adjust. And those things are elaborately and wonderfully and inspiringly presented by Prabhupada in his purports. Hare Krishna. Okay, that's all I had to say about that. Okay, what about our reflections? I mean, I just know, I gave a reflection, but anyway, I don't want to make this a one horse pony. No, one. What is that saying? One trick pony. Yeah. Thanks. Prabhupada gave up his family life, but he accepted all of us as family members, and he treated us like that. And therefore we felt no lacking. Yes, Ramdas.
I have a question, Maharaj.
Yes, sir.
In one of the verses in the translation and the purport, the Guru was explaining to Dhrtarastra Maharaj that you should leave before the influence of Kali really starts to degrade humanity.
Yeah.
But when you read the whole story of the Mahabharata, just everything that the Kauravas had done, weren't they already kind of deteriorating?
Yeah, but it was just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, they were still, he's, in case you didn't get his question, it's a wonderful question, that Vidurat, in instructing Dhrtarastra, reminded him that the Kali Yuga is coming. So you better get out of here quick because Kali Yuga is going to take over and then it's going to be very bad. Well, it had begun. It had begun. There were things done in the Battle of Kurukshetra even that were, never done before in the history of military science. Parikshit Maharaj, he actually gave a place for the personality of Kali to stay, where gold was hoarded. First he said, you can stay anywhere where there's no illicit sex, no gambling, no meat eating, and no intoxication. But it wasn't there in his kingdom. There was no place like that. So then Kali bowed down to him and said, I'm also a praja, I'm also one of your citizens, but I see that there is no place like that. So you have to give me a place to live, at least. Because he had surrendered. He had fully surrendered. And then Parikshit Maharaj, giving the example of a dutiful king and a proper king, gave him this one place where gold is hoarded. So even though it's a fact that it had started, it was just beginning. So he was warning him, time will come when there aren't any kings, and there won't be a place for you to just live in a palace and, enjoy no matter what's going on in the world, etc., 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 etc. Hare Krishna. Yes.
So, it's about yesterday's reading. Actually, one line it says, even in the ordinary moral codes, there's no harm in taking lessons from a person who may be born less than a sutra. It's like, I just kind of want to know, what does that mean, or what kind of lessons it's like referring to?
The lessons of the Bhagavad Gita, the lessons of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, and how to apply it in one's life. If a person isn't ideal in character, but is surrendered to soul, there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita in which Krishna explains this. He says, Apichet suduracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak sadur eva samantavyak samyak vyavasito hisaha. So this means that apichet suduracharo means an activity or activities that are abominable. So apichet, even though one has engaged or is engaging in abominable activities, if one is fixed in the devotional service of Krishna, in other words, if one is fixed in his acceptance of Krishna as the Supreme Lord and is doing every day things to try to serve Krishna, then sadhu eva samantavya. Krishna accepts that person as a sadhu. And not just a sadhu, but samyak. Samyak vyavasito hisa. Samyak means complete. So then Arjuna, when Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, his commentary is in the form of a parallel conversation between Arjuna and Krishna. It's very innovative, very creative. A parallel discussion. That's his commentary. And in the next verse, in the parallel commentary, Arjuna says to Krishna, well, surely you don't mean samyak, completely pure, because he's doing something that's not pure. And then in the commentary, Krishna yells at him, no, Arjuna. Kauntiya pradijanihi name bhakta pradashati. I promise that my devotee will never perish. So the main thing is to become a devotee, not a pretend devotee. Not that you just wear tilak and wear devotional clothes and, do certain rules and regulations and cultural this, cultural. But if you're a devotee, if you're actually a devotee of Krishna, if you're chanting for his pleasure, if you're making the garlands, look at these beautiful garlands, for his pleasure. By the way, we gave some garlands there, also by the mercy of Guru Bhakti, of course. There was nice rose garlands, and we gave one to the receptionist. We gave one to one of the nurses in the back, and they were just like, oh, this is so wonderful, thank you. What is this? It must have taken so much time to make this. It's so beautiful. And then we were able to tell them, yes, it's made by a devotee for Krishna. And everything that's done for Krishna is beautiful and fragrant and wise and etc., etc. So stay where you are and do what you do for Krishna. And the guidance, and that's where this comes in, if you take guidance from the right person, if you associate with the right persons and get the right guidance, then your life will gradually be spiritualized. Is that something? Does it answer the question? Oh, good. My fact checker is giving me a high sign that I have to stop now. What time is it? Oh, not bad. I'm only 2 minutes late. Yeah, I think honestly I should stop because it's been a big day, to say the least. And I thank all the devotees also. I want to acknowledge, I have to type with one hand now. It's hard for me to answer all the emails I've been getting over the last few days. You know, wonderful well wishes and, you know, prayers for the surgery to become successful and all that, on and on and on. And I just want to thank everybody for those wonderful prayers. Krishna listens to his devotees, and there's no doubt that this surgery was successful by your grace and by the expertise of Dr. Rosen, because he did it in only 35 minutes. Everyone was buzzing. He set a record. He set a record. He set a record. I was thinking, well, I hope he didn't rush through it and, you know, cause some further complications. But after it was explained to me, and they gave me a series of x-rays of the results and what it looks like now. So, okay, thank you very much. All glories to Vidura, who tells the truth in all circumstances. And we need to hear the truth in all circumstances and respond to the truth. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vidura ji ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj's unwavering devotion to this vrat of reading every night. Ki jai.